Stop pretending. Stop pretending that Islam is a religion. Islam is a totalitarian ideology with terrorism. Facts: the Middle East is constantly in turmoil with jihad. Kurdistan was a victim of Islamic jihad, with the manual known as Quran. Quran chapter 8 verse 12 says, "I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve, so strike above the necks and strike off every fingertip of theirs."
Welcome to the dmaharlikanstv. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Blame is the cheap way. It's the way of the coward. Those who have the courage take responsibility. They don't blame. If Hamas is not defeated, if Hamas is not eradicated in Gaza, we will set the model. We will give the freedom to so many radical groups around the world, especially in Europe, because many of ISIS have fled to Europe under civilian cover. They are sleeping cells in Europe. And there is a migrant problem in Europe. And there is an Islamic problem in Europe. And this is just a warning. If you really care for the global security, and I speak as a person who was part of the counter-terrorism effort against radical Islamists, if Hamas is not defeated in Gaza, it will inspire many groups around the globe. They will see that few thousands of savages can blackmail the international community, the superpowers, and bring democracies to their knees. Blame is the cheap way. It's the way of the coward. Those who have the courage take responsibility.
Against Islamism, save Britain from Islamism, fascism and terrorism. The people of Britain, they had enough. They are not going to let these fascist, terrorist Islamists impose their ideology to our children. If you come from other country here, you have to integrate here. You have to accept the culture. You cannot come here and stand against this culture and blatantly shouting, "We are coming to take over." They are proud of having 6, 7 children and our government paying for their children. We have to shut down our border for at least 7 to 10 years. And clean the country from inside, from this fascism, from this Islamism. I am saying this as a Muslim.
That's really interesting. That's the first Muslim I've ever heard come out and say this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country, what do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they refuse, then tell them Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation. In return, when enemy comes and attack your country, you don't fight. We Muslims protect you. Subhanallah, for this little money? Yes. And you enjoy sitting in your homes and in your country and live your life normally. But the ruling is for Sharia. So you do not open nightclubs, you do not fornicate. If they refuse, then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves, and we take your land, and you take your... Because you refuse, I give you 2 good options in the coming 40, 50 years when the Muslims become strong.
The occupying power continues with its colonial policy and its daily violations. It continues to abuse, to arbitrarily detain, to carry out ethnic cleansing, steal land and natural resources, uproot trees, steal money, Israeli activity to Judaize Jerusalem, demolition of homes, confiscation of land and property, spoiling of natural resources.
Racist violations perpetrated by Israel.
Israel continues to commit various forms of human rights violations in Palestine.
Israel, the occupying power, is advancing in its efforts of mass colonization and continued apartheid. Put an end to this colonialist regime.
Apartheid, atrocities and massive destruction inflicted on the Palestinian people.
War crimes, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing and state terror.
Thank you. United Nations Watch.
Shukran, Sayyid Rais. I take the floor on behalf of the UN Watch. My name is Mus'ab Hassan Youssef. I grew up in Ramallah as a member of Hamas. I address the words to the Palestinian Authority, which claims to be the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. I ask, where does your legitimacy come from? The Palestinian people did not elect you, and they did not appoint you to represent them. You are self-appointed. Your accountability is not to your own people. This is evidenced by your own total violation for their human rights. In fact, the Palestinian individual and their human development is the least of your concerns. You kidnap Palestinian students from campus and torture them in your jails. You torture your political rivals. The suffering of the Palestinian people is the outcome of your selfish political interest. You are the greatest enemy of the Palestinian people. If Israel did not exist, you would have no one to blame. Take responsibility for the outcome of your own actions. You fan the flames of conflict to maintain your abusive power. Finally, you use this platform to mislead the international community, to mislead the Palestinian society, to believe that Israel is responsible for the problem you create. Thank you.
How are you today? As always, it's really such an honor for me to be at Restoration Weekend, to be amongst friends, brave people who are determined to let freedom prevail. People who supported me for so many years, like my dear friend and ally, Dr. Bob Shillman. Bob, thank you so much for everything you have been doing for us all those years. Thank you. Also, thank you, David Horowitz, for all the inspiration, and so many others that I'm seeing here today who helped me in any phase of my life or trouble, like Nina Rosenwald, Daniel Pipes, and so many others. Thank you all so much. Every time I set foot on American soil, I feel the energy of the country that is characterized by freedom, like no other country in the world, and where bravery is still being held in high regard. I feel the energy of the country that was established to realize a vision, to realize an ideal, to discover and to maintain liberty among men. America was built on courage, on imagination, and the undeniable determination which is still very much needed in the world today. I love the United States of America, where old glory, your flag, is always flying high, proud and bright. Stars and stripes forever. And I specifically remember a very special moment last July. At the White House, a Dutch art collector met with the American Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Trump, to present him with a very special flag, an American flag. A flag that was proudly hailed and proudly raised on one of the first ships that landed at the beaches of Normandy in 1944. And that flag graced the landing craft that was commanded by Howard van der Beek, an American of Dutch descent. And at a perilous fight, it witnessed how brave young Americans fought and died against the battle against tyranny. And that beautiful, old and battle-scarred flag returned home, exactly 75 years after the liberation of Europe. And it's that flag that reminds me how connected, how united we are, the Americans and the Dutch. It reminds me that though our countries may be an ocean apart, in the darkest hour of our history, America answered. It reminds me that we share our history. We share the color of our flags. We share the beautiful red, white and blue, but we also share our future because we share the same values. We believe in freedom. We believe in justice. We believe in liberty. And we know that these principles are as valuable as they are vulnerable. May our flags remind us, as I quote the great President Ronald Reagan, that our freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for. It must be protected and handed on to them to do the same. Unfortunately, most of the European leaders don't protect our freedom. The freedom that American soldiers fought for and sacrificed their life for. After Nazism, after communism was defeated, they fail to stop Islamism today. They open our borders to more and more Islam and believe in cultural relativism, in the sickening mantra that all cultures are equal, which of course they are not. They fail to subscribe to the view, to the truth, that Islam and freedom are incompatible. As we can see in any country in the world where Islam is already dominant today. Everywhere Islam roots, freedom dies. Stop appeasing Islam. Neutrality. Neutrality in the face of evil is evil, but appeasement is downright suicide. And here in America, your President Donald J. Trump proves to be a very wise and a very brave man. A very brave man who fights against evil. He fought the Islamic State and rightfully ordered their leader to be killed. He built a wall at your southern border and he introduced travel bans from Islamic countries such as Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria and Yemen. He allows very few to zero resettlement of so-called refugees in the United States of America. And he is not sidelined by the nonsense of the left, who are obsessed with fake issues like climate change. He is focusing on the real important issues like security, economy and terrorism. And believe me, for somebody who is coming from Europe, this is all historic. It is legendary to have a president like that. I wish we had such brave leaders in Europe. People who put their own people and nation first, as President Trump puts America first. And as a foreign politician, I should not interfere in domestic American politics. But allow me, as a friend of America, to give a message as the leader of the opposition in the Dutch Parliament to all my colleagues in your House of Representatives, to the Democrats in the House more specifically. For all your President, I say to my colleagues in your House, for all your President Donald Trump has done for your country, he does not deserve impeachment, he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. I also admire President Trump's unwavering support for the State of Israel. He made America the first nation in the world to move its embassy to Jerusalem. He recognized the sovereignty of Israel over the Golan Heights. He knows that Israel is one of us, that Israel is the first line of defense of our common heritage and culture, that Israel indeed is a beacon of light in an area of total darkness. And just like the American soldiers stormed the Normandy beaches in 1944, today young Israeli men and women are fighting for our freedom, for our civilization, for our values, and they deserve our utmost respect. So I believe we all must stand strong with Israel. We have to stand strong with Israel. We stand strong with Israel when they triumph, and we stand strong with Israel in the hours of need. When dark Islamic forces rain rockets upon its citizens of Israel, we stand strong with Israel. And just this week we saw again rockets of hatred pouring down on innocent Israeli citizens. But remember, my friends, Am Yisrael Chai. The Jewish nation lives. The Jewish nation lives, is resilient, and will defeat its vicious enemies. When the evil empire of Iran threatens to wipe Israel off the map, we stand strong with Israel. And we stand strong with Israel in their quest for peace and justice, in their fight against the anti-Semitic BDS movement. Last week, the European Court of Justice ruled that products made in Judea and Samaria can no longer be labeled in Europe as made in Israel. And this kangaroo court describes these territories as occupied territories. But my friends, those are not occupied territories. These are liberated territories. I lived and worked in Judea for almost a year. It's the heartland of the Jewish state. And today we see the Jews leaving from Europe. Unfortunately, Jews are leaving Europe today because of the Islamic and the left anti-Semitism. And Evelyn Marcus, a dear friend of mine, where is Evelyn? Is Evelyn, please, Evelyn Marcus, who is here. She's standing there. Evelyn Marcus made the documentary called Never Again Is Now. I repeat, Never Again Is Now, exactly about that issue. And I recommend you to watch it, to support it. It is important that this film, Never Again Is Now, about the Jews leaving Europe because of anti-Semitism, is watched by us and elsewhere. Thank you so much, Evelyn, for making this documentary. My friends, in Europe, most government leaders exactly do the opposite as President Trump. They open the borders to more and more immigrants, most of them from Islamic countries with Islamic values. As a matter of fact, we are now in the process of being colonized by Islamic colonists. They dismantle our nation states. They give away our national sovereignty to bureaucratic institutions, our leaders, like the European Union. They appease the evil ideology and they facilitate the demise of freedom of speech. Actually, they are the one, not your leaders, but our leaders are the ones that deserve to be impeached. My friends, I believe in freedom. I believe in the American dream, a better life for generations to come, where anyone can obtain their own version of success through sacrifice, through risk-taking, through hard work. It's a dream that many European citizens share. But in order to keep that dream alive, we have to stand up for the truth. And the Russian writer and dissident Alexander Solzhenitsyn used to say that the truth is seldom sweet, it's almost always very bitter. And he was right. But the truth should be heard. And the truth is, once again, that the Western civilization, our civilization, based on humanity, on Judaism and on Christianity, is the best civilization on earth, is far superior to the Islamic civilization. And I do believe that the best days lie ahead of us, but only if we persevere, no matter what. Only if we resist this totalitarian ideology called Islam that is threatening us. Or we have to fight back. And someone who never gave up, and I'm sure never will give up, is David Horowitz. Somebody who spoke before here called him a giant, and he really is. David has been an inspiration to me and to many others, not only in America, but around the world, for a very, very long time. His mission, David's mission, and that of his Freedom Center is very clear and very strong. Identify the enemy and devise ways to defeat him. And the collaboration between the political left and America's enemies abroad and criminals at home is not only an American phenomenon. We experience it in Europe every day. And David's mission to defend free societies which are under attack from the enemies within and without is more topical than ever. It even became worse in Europe, where not only the left, but also many of the so-called conservatives or conservative liberals, as the German Chancellor Merkel of our own Prime Minister Rutte from the Netherlands, are acting alike the left today. They are the ones opening our borders to mass immigrations. They are the ones inviting the Islamization of our societies, of inviting the culture of hate and submission, of giving away our national security, our freedom of speech, our national sovereignty, our cultural identity. They believe that issues as climate change are more important than stopping Islamic barbarism. And for that fight and for that resilience that we have, also the people of Europe have to thank David Horowitz. Thank you, David, for your inspiration. Unfortunately, most of our European leaders are weak, chicken-hearted and afraid. The followers of Islam, however, are well organized, well funded, and highly motivated by their dangerous ideology. Unfortunately, they are more often better motivated than the majority of our own people. That the alliance of the left and the liberals that they made an alliance with. But fortunately, these weak politicians don't represent the future. They don't represent hope. More and more Europeans today see the necessity to vote for politicians who are willing and able to stand up against the evil of Islam, to defend our superior culture, to protect our freedom. And in many, many European countries, we see that patriots are gaining electoral power. In Italy, in Hungary, in Greece, in Belgium, in France, and last week our friends from the Vox Party in Spain doubled their seats. So, if we stand up and resist, the future is ours. The future belongs to the patriots of Europe. But there is no time to wait for the future. We need to act today. It is our duty that we push back, that we fight back and defend what our fathers and forefathers fought for. We won't let the progressive and the Islamic allies define our future. We won't let them destroy our prosperity. We won't let them destroy our future. Unfortunately, if you resist, you will pay a very high price. As I experienced myself, as Dr. Bob said, I got many fatwas. I am on the death list of many Islamic terror organizations, and I live under 24/7 police protection and security and in government safe houses with my wife for more than 15 years now. But besides that, I have been taken to court and threatened to be taken to court in the Netherlands, in Austria, in Pakistan, in Jordan, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, in Saudi Arabia, and I'm a persona non grata for life in Indonesia. It's a legal jihad against the freedom of speech, not only from Islamic barbaric regimes, but also from Western countries, Western governments like my own home country. Because indeed, for over a decade now, the Dutch political establishment and the public prosecutors are hunting me down. They are waging a legal war, a legal jihad against me with the sole purpose for silencing me. Silencing my dissenting opinion. Silencing my and their political opponent. 12 years ago, I made a short documentary called Fitna about the dark sides of the Quran and the Islam. And the Dutch government, even at that time, tried to stop me from making this movie, for distributing this movie. And they tried to get me convicted for the crime of exposing the truth. And right after my full acquittal at that time, the former Dutch Ministry of Justice, who is responsible for the Dutch Public Prosecutor's Office, said to a senior official that Wilders is getting too much in our way. So the political witch hunt continued. And since then, since the last 5 years, I am entangled in a second political trial in my home country. Weeks I had to spend in a special secured courtroom where normally terrorists are being tried. I had to spend my days in that horrific courtroom instead of parliament. And what do they claim was my crime? Asking a crowd about Moroccans. In the Netherlands, the group with one of the highest crime rates, 80%. 80% of all Dutch Muslims who went to fight to Syria and Iraq for the Islamic State were Moroccans. And now there is solid evidence that the Ministry of Justice has influenced this trial, have tried to steer it. Political settling of scores of the highest order. And indeed, as Dr. Bob said, I'm the leader of the second biggest party in the Dutch parliament. I'm the leader of the opposition in the Dutch parliament. But I almost spend more time in courtroom and with lawyers than I debate in parliament. And as if that's not enough, today also Austria is considering to prosecute me now for a speech I held in 2015, almost 5 years ago in Vienna, as a guest of one of the major political parties. I spoke about the dangers of Islam. You can see my speech on YouTube. And in Austria, it seems that if a group of people feel offended, it is already punishable by law. And indeed, one Austrian mosque organization, filed a complaint after my speech, and now I could be prosecuted and jailed for 2 years in an Austrian jail. I hope you will all come and visit me, by the way. But whether I end up in jail or not is not the most pressing issue. I gave up my personal freedom years ago. The real question is, will free speech, will speaking the truth about Islam be put behind bars? That's even the larger question, will we leave Europe's children the values of Rome, Athens and Jerusalem, or the values of Mecca, Tehran and Gaza? What will be the choice? And this legal battle, my friends, is not over yet. But I tell you that whatever the outcome will be, I will never be silent. I will always speak the truth. I will always discuss issues regarding Islam and mass immigration. For that is not only my political mission, but it's my mission of my life. It's about freedom. It's the mission to safeguard us from the dangers of Islamization. So we have to never, ever give up. Dr. Bob already just quoted Edmund Burke, who said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil, is for good men to do nothing. Unfortunately, in Europe, most men do nothing. They allow our women being harassed and raped. They allow young Muslim girls to be genitally mutilated. Only in my own country, in Holland, more than 40,000 women have been genitally mutilated. More than 40,000 only in Holland. They allow Pakistani grooming gangs to rape young British girls. My dear ally, Katie Hopkins, I believe, spoke about it yesterday. Where is Katie Hopkins? She's sitting. Can you please stand up? My friends, indeed, let me just say a few words, if you allow me, about Katie Hopkins. Katie Hopkins is a real brave person. She is a true hero. She is somebody who Europe needs more people about. She's not afraid. She speaks the truth. I recommend that you follow her. She is tougher than Margaret Thatcher, and she's braver than Prime Minister Johnson. She should be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So the European elites are also allowing terrorists killing innocent people, shouting Allahu Akbar. They allow Islamic schools where children, like in my own country, Holland, are being taught that Christians should be lashed, stoned and beheaded by the sword. They allow that the Jews wearing a kippah are beaten up in our streets. They allow no-go zones where Sharia law is the law of the land, or at least the law of the street, in many European cities today. They allow the indigenous people to feel as if they are foreigners in their own land. It's a bloody shame, but it is happening today. And the people of Europe have had enough of this treasonous behavior from the elites who adore multiculturalism and destroy our identity and our traditions. I'm not exaggerating. Parts of Europe resemble war zones today. When you look at major cities in France, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in the United Kingdom, in Sweden, and anywhere else in Europe, at least not in Eastern Europe, but in the western part of Europe, you see that it looks like Northern Africa or the Middle East. That our values like freedom, the equality between men and women do not exist anymore. That violence, rape and intolerance became more dominant, and Western values are replaced by values resembling Sharia law. So it's time to say enough is enough. We have to say no more. Please say no more. No more terror. No more Sharia law. No more anti-Semitism. No more legal jihad. No more evil. No more political weakness. No more Islam. Stop selling us out. My friends, the essence of my speech today is that Europe is in the process of being Islamized, and it's getting worse by the day. And if we don't fight back, we will lose everything. Indeed, we are facing the first and most major existential threat in the first time since the Second World War. The ancient heritage of our forefathers is under attack, and we have to stand up and defend it. A century and a half ago, here in America, a young president said exactly what I mean. And this is what Abraham Lincoln said in the year 1862. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate for the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country, end of quote. And I can think of no better moment to defend our freedom than now. And it is up to us to let as many people as possible to realize this. For we are the free men and women of the West, and freedom is our birthright. And those who want to deny liberty to us do not belong to our society. It is as simple as that. So this is what I believe we Europeans, we in Europe should do. And maybe you should do the same, but that's up to you. First, stop pretending that Islam is a religion. Islam is not a religion. Islam is a totalitarian ideology based on conquest, submission, and violence. Islam is not a religion. Second, protect our constitutional freedoms by not granting them to a totalitarian ideology that wants to rob us of our freedom. Let them not use our freedoms to rob us of our freedoms. Let us not be too politically correct. We should not grant them their freedom to rob us of our freedom. So, no more Islamic schools, no more mosques, for they represent an ideology of hate, of violence, of submission. Third, we should stop the immigration, full stop the immigration from Islamic nations. We should immediately deport all immigrants who commit crimes and act according to Sharia law. There is no room for Sharia law in a free society. Fourth, we must all and always support Israel and allow them to protect themselves against vicious enemies like the Islamic Republic of Iran. We Europeans should reintroduce national border control, for we have none at this time. If you enter Greece, you are in Holland. We should reintroduce national border control. We should introduce, like the Israelis do and have, administrative detention to detain potential terrorists. This is what we should do. We should stop Islamic symbolism. I am very proud that since August 1st, the Islamic burqa and the Islamic niqab is, because of the majority of the Dutch parliament supported a motion from me to ban it, is outlawed in the Netherlands in public places. And we should, of course, to be able to speak the truth, introduce a European kind of First Amendment so that Islam critics cannot be prosecuted anymore. I believe there are two things that Americans should do. First, learn your lessons from Europe. Learn your lessons for Europe. Islam already arrived at America. We heard speakers before me rightfully saying that, but it's just, don't think it's a long way before you become the second Europe. Islam will conquer before you know it. Be resilient, stand up and fight for your freedom and against Islam. And second, please, maybe the most important thing I ask Americans to do is re-elect President Donald J. Trump. And let us not be afraid. When people are no longer afraid to speak the truth, seemingly invincible evil empires begin to crumble. And Islam is one of those evil empires. And it too, I am sure, will collapse once people hear and understand the truth about Islam more as they do today. So we have no alternative than to make a stand against the enemies of freedom, from within and without, as David taught us. And our enemies should know that we will never apologize for being free men. We will never bow for the combined forces of Mecca and the left. And we will never surrender. My friends, there is no stronger force than the force of free men fighting for the great cause of liberty. And the West, indeed, is in danger today. But we can still prevail, even when we are insulted, even when we are harassed and intimidated, even when they take us to court for speaking the truth, even when we are marked for death, even for stating an opinion. We must never be silenced. Never, ever be silenced. And I promise you, at the end of the day, we will win. Thank you and good luck to you all.